Greetings, friends. I greet you in the name of lover, beloved, and love overflowing. Today in the Christian calendar, we celebrate the resurrection of Jesus. And the resurrection stories in the Gospels are a fascinating interplay of presence and absence. The absence of Jesus, the friend and prophet, the presence of the risen Christ. The empty tomb is a powerful symbol of this absence and presence. The symbol of the empty tomb tells us that the risen Christ is not to be found where and in what form we expect to find him. His presence is found in the absence of what we expected to find, in the unexpected and the unknowable. And Henri Nouwen wrote really beautifully about absence and presence in prayer, and he wrote, God is beyond our heart and mind, beyond our feelings and thoughts, beyond our expectations and desires, and beyond all the events and experiences that make up our life. Still, God is in the center of all of it. Here we touch the heart of prayer, since here it becomes manifest that in prayer, the distinction between God's presence and God's absence no longer really distinguishes. In prayer, God's presence is never separated from God's absence, and God's absence is never separated from God's presence. God's presence is so much beyond the human experience of being together that it quite easily is perceived as absence. God's absence, on the other hand, is often so deeply felt that it leads to a new sense of God's presence. It's interesting that in many of the resurrection stories, the risen Christ was not recognized by even his closest companions. The two followers of Jesus on the road to Emmaus had no idea who he was, even though they'd walked and talked together for a long way. And Mary Magdalene, weeping at the empty tomb, thought he was the gardener. This lack of recognition of Christ's presence echoes Jesus' own words from his ministry, that whatever you have done to the least of these, you have done to me. We don't recognize Christ in the gardener, in the homeless person, in the least of these. Christ is not confined to a specific figure or time in history. And as Richard Rohr says, many people think that Christ is Jesus' surname. And in his book on the universal Christ, he wrote, we so fell in love with this personal interface in Jesus that we forgot about the eternal Christ, the body of God, which is all of creation. When we believe in Jesus Christ, we're believing in something much bigger than the historical incarnation that we call Jesus. Jesus is the visible map, the entire sweep of the meaning of the Anointed One, the Christ, includes us and all of creation since the beginning of time. Christ is with us, among us, in the presence of one another, and in the presence of all those we encounter, especially the least of these. But why especially the least of these? Where our conditioned tendency may be to overlook the humanity of another, to diminish somebody, or to close off and set up hard boundaries against others in our hearts, the invitation is to soften and open our hearts instead. And as we do this, We are opening to the mystery and presence of the risen Christ. And we're opening our hearts into the vast, loving, boundaryless heart of Christ that includes everybody. Surely I am with you always. These words of Jesus echo to us from Matthew chapter 28. Going back to these stories of the resurrection encounters, this lack of recognition of the risen Christ while in his presence holds another important invitation to us. So often the overlay of our assumptions, our concepts and stories, this keeps us from recognizing the freshness and sacredness of what is right here, of the presence that is right here with us, in us, around us, in the present moment. Letting go of our certainty and our preconceptions, the way we had hoped or expected it would turn out, letting these go opens us to the unexpected miracle of life, unfolding new and fresh right here, right now. We so easily get trapped in the idolatry of forms, cultural images, beliefs, and assumptions, and we project these onto Jesus, onto the sacred. But I find it fascinating how Jesus himself, in his years of ministry, when people wanted to make him a leader according to their expectations, he either moved off to another place, escaping their adulation and their expectations, or he deeply offended them to the point that many of them stopped following him. He refused to be pulled into their expectations or to be pedestalized or crystallized into some form of what he was expected to be. The worship of his form is to miss the deeper message which he gave in this statement, before Abraham was, I am. What a profound statement. Before Abraham was, I am. Prior to our constructs, our lineage, our treasured belonging systems, the I am dwells deep in our hearts and in all hearts as Christ with us, within us. Not able to be captured in forms, images, or temples, yet who does manifest through love, through self-giving, and through the brokenness and fragility of our humanity. This is the profound beauty of the Jesus story, and particularly these Easter events. To me, it's a travesty that we've created such a damaging, linear, transactional atonement narrative out of a profound mystery, making cheap belonging and exclusionary systems out of an inexplicable depth of love. Death brings us to those thin places where the veil between the known and the unknowable parts for a moment, becomes so thin. The temple curtain is torn, and for a moment we can intuit what lies beyond. And Easter brings us to this threshold between death and life, known and unknowable, form and formless. Can we dare to remain in this liminal space where our conceptual mind has no idea? Can we stand in humility on this holy ground with open minds and hearts to allow the mystery of I am to meet us, confound us, and to unravel us rather than the other way around? So I invite you to open to this profound mystery of presence and absence, absence in presence, presence in absence, in a time of quiet prayer or meditation, letting go of known images, beliefs, expectations, and assumptions, and opening to the indescribable mystery of the I am presence of the risen Christ with us, among us, within us.